Welcome to today's session. My name is Denise Peterson, Director of Federal Industry Analysis here at Deltek, and today I'm talking to Alex Rossino, Principal Research Analyst. So Alex, thank you for joining us. The Department of Defense has been facing some tremendous budgetary pressures due to sequestration. Are there any bright spots or opportunity areas for contractors within the defense IT space?
Sure, there are actually a number of them, and we like to call these pockets of opportunity within a general overall declining market size. So the first one will be cybersecurity. We hear it in the news every day that cybersecurity is a problem or is a challenge for the Defense Department across the board, and so they're trying to harden networks to protect data and to make sure that insider threats are mitigated. So that's an area where we're seeing a good amount of growth. That's especially in personnel, as the department tries to put more funding toward hiring more people. The other area is cloud computing. And cloud computing gets to the enterprise approach, which means that once a cloud is stood up, that the department can then offer email, for example, across the services and across the agencies on an enterprise basis using the cloud. So that's an area where we're seeing some growth as well. We're also seeing growth in mobile technologies. DoD's lagged behind in the use of mobility, or at least the flexibility to use more kinds of mobile devices and platforms for both computing and communications. So now that the department has a mobile device management program up and running, and they're able to roll out a larger number of devices, we're seeing that really pick up speed. And they're accommodating the use of these devices by investments also in wireless infrastructure, so that the devices can be used anywhere at any time by anyone who has secure access. And then the last area that I mentioned is ISR, which is intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. Unmanned platforms, what the media likes to call drones, but remotely piloted vehicles, unmanned platforms. These are really taking off in use across the Department of Defense, and not just aerial as well. There are naval ones, there are underwater ones, and there are also ground vehicles that can be used. And these are being used to make up for personnel shortfalls, or the fact that the department's mission across the world hasn't changed and it hasn't been reduced, even though there is a drawdown in Afghanistan, but the funding has been reduced. So the department is trying to make sure that it uses technology in a way that it can mitigate the effects on their mission, on doing the mission successfully, using technology instead of people.
So we hear about this big initiative within the Department of Defense, the Joint Information Environment, and it seems that there's a lot of budget going towards that. It's something that all of the defense components are interested in. Can you talk a little bit about what that is and what's happening with that?
Sure. So the Joint Information Environment is really an effort to put everyone on the same footing across the Department of Defense. Again, we have the situation over the last 30 years that each of the services and defense agencies has bought their own IT. So they have stovepipe network environments, which have a number of different points of entry that can be used by potential threats. So the Joint Information Environment is really a hardware-based effort to make sure that the networks are operating on the same internet protocol footing, and it's being implemented across the world right now in 3 increments. The first increment is in Europe, and that's the furthest along. That's the convergence of networks between European Command and African Command, or AFRICOM. And the second increment is going to start taking place, they're in the process of doing planning at PACOM, or Pacific Command, and that's over in Hawaii, and there will be significant work as well being done in Korea. And then the third increment is here in the United States, so in the CONUS. And that increment really is an Army-led effort where they're implementing this new hardware, network hardware called multi-label or multi-protocol label switching hardware, which provides greater bandwidth to deliver enterprise services that I mentioned earlier, and also to utilize cloud computing solutions, and also to provide a single network through which all Department of Defense data flows, and this data flows into what are called joint regional security stacks, and these stacks are monitored with big data analytics, and it helps provide more security for the data that's flowing. So it mitigates threats, and again puts everyone on the same footing.
Well, that sounds really complex. One thing you mentioned earlier that cloud computing is a pocket of opportunity. We hear that cloud is part of the JIE. Can you talk a little bit more about exactly what DoD is doing specific to cloud, considering kind of the security concerns around cloud?
Sure. Well, the big problem that DoD's had is trying to make sure that commercial cloud solutions meet the security protocols that are mandated by Cyber Command. So it's been a slow and painful process, especially for vendors who are waiting for this procurement to come out, this commercial cloud solutions procurement to come out. So what DoD's been doing in the background is they've been certifying cloud providers, certain cloud providers, to provide what's called a cloud infrastructure or infrastructure as a service. And so you can see them establishing the baseline or the foundation for being able to use commercial cloud, especially for capacity services. So, for example, at the end of the year, at the end of every fiscal year, when they go through when the services go through audits, there's a spike in activity, right? So you'll need more computing power in order to actually take care of that. So the cloud will be used, or cloud capacity will be used for that. Right now, probably the furthest along effort in cloud is at the Defense Information Systems Agency, or DISA, and they've put up what's called a MIL cloud, or military cloud, and that cloud is a secure environment that provides cloud services, applications, infrastructure, platforms for software development, along the same lines as Amazon Web Services, for example, or any other large commercial provider. And so the services can use this MIL cloud in a kind of secure, in a secure environment where they're not as worried about the potential threat to their data.
Well, that sounds interesting, and it sounds like cloud is one area where Department of Defense is trying to continue to innovate, but innovation seems to be one of those areas within a tight budget environment that the progress has slowed there. So are there any areas where you're seeing DoD trying to innovate when it comes to IT?
Sure. Well, the cloudlet area is an obvious one. I mean, it's at the research level right now, where they're trying to understand exactly how the cloudlets will work, and they want to use it for computing as well, for larger purposes other than just mobile devices. So, how do you put the cloud at the edge? And it's really essentially just creating a smaller infrastructure in a remote location. The other area that I point to is also analytics. Or big data, what we're hearing about now, creating the Internet of Things. In creating this unified network environment, it allows the department to be able to use analytics across the board. So as data flows in and out or through the network or around the network, it can be monitored actively and continuously by a set of automated processes that will enable analysis of it by data scientists and other operators at central locations. So the NSA can monitor what's going on DoD networks using this an activity on DoD networks using this kind of analytical approach. And that's really an area that it's really a big step for the DoD, a big step forward, and it should make things more secure.
All right, well, thank you for joining us, Alex.
Thanks very much.